Hello, welcome to another episode of Rich James Leicester Square Theatre Podcast with Sanjeev Bhaskar. I'm here in Bristol. I'm looking for some guests. There's no famous people around at all, though, so I don't think we're going to get anyone. Do check out Repatriation is coming on tour, and go to richhang.com/gigs. You get free beer, beer52.com/Repatriation. Let's sit back, relax. And I don't know who these guys are. I wish they've got in the way a bit there.
Be here long.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's Rich James Leicester Square Theatre Podcast. Proper comedy. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Leicester Square Theatre. Please welcome a man who, even though he's played for time, has nothing to say. It's Richard Herring! Thank you very much. Hello, London. Oh no, I'm still drunk from last week. It's Richard Herring. I'm doing my podcast, Rich James Leicester Square Theatre Podcast. I was talking to Beau Brummell the other day, the dandy. That dandy guy. He was very cool back in the day, whatever. Meant to research him on Wikipedia, find out when he was from. He calls it Repatriation, so that's going to be fun. We're going to talk to the audience. Nothing's happened to me since the last podcast, really hardly anything at all. And in the last week. So I'll talk to hello there, young lady. I'm not talking to you. There was a clue in the young. And another clue in the lady. What's your name? Rosie. Rosie. Hello, Rosie. How are you doing? Did you come to see Rick Edwards last week? Is that why you're here? Yeah, thanks. What do you do for a living, Rosie?
Civil servant.
You're a civil servant. How's that going for you with Brexit and everything going on? Pretty badly, right? You're not allowed to say. People won't know who you are, just no one can see you from just Rosie. We'll call you something else. What department of the civil service do you work in?
Housing.
Housing. That's all right. That's probably going to be people will probably still be some houses afterwards. They're going to be a lot cheaper, aren't they? It's going to be good. So as long as you don't own one at the moment. So nice to see you. It's unusual to have. That's the what people usually look like in the front row. That's just why I wanted to say hello, because, no offence, mate, but comparatively...
I also have a science degree.
You have a science degree? That's good. It's good that you could nearly worked in IT. Do you work in IT, mate? No, don't say no like you're above being in IT, mate. What do you work... What's your name, sorry?
Peter.
Peter. I was going to say you were hideously ugly. People, but I didn't get to that bit. You're not, Peter. You're very good looking in your own way. Do you remember when you had some of this, Pete? Hey, do you remember? Hey, do you remember that? Look at that. I'm not. There's nothing. What do you do, Peter?
I work in a bank.
You work in a bank. Oh, it's his fault that everything's going wrong in the theatres, and he's sitting next to you. Which bank? Is it a good bank?
Oh, I'm not going to say that.
You're not. Coots, isn't it? It's Coots. Yes, it is. Yeah, I thought so. Do you work in a bank?
No.
What's your name?
Matt.
Oh God, I'm so drunk that I just nearly did a joke about you just lying in front of a door. It's okay, I didn't do it, so it's okay. What do you do, Matt?
I'm a lawyer.
You're a lawyer? Fucking hell, it's high-powered, isn't it? This guy is... banks, civil servants. Where are my IT guys? There you are! How are you doing? IT? IT, there he is, the Dodgers shirt. What? How's the IT going? Yeah, good. That's one. What's the best law, in your opinion? Which one do you like prosecuting people for or defending them for most?
There's so many to choose.
There are. That's why it's a difficult question, no? I ask the tough questions in this podcast, and I don't make it easy. But, if this is an example of your lawyering, mate, you should work in IT. Because it's no good, what's your best law? It's so difficult. What? Oh, this man's up for murder. It looks like he's done it. It's really difficult to get him off. I hope someone will come in with some evidence that proves he didn't do it. Is that what you do? No. Would you do that sort of stuff as a lawyer? No, as a barrister. Right, well, it's lovely to talk to the audience. in a slightly aggressive fun. How are you, madam? I'm sorry, I was a little rude earlier. I hope you didn't. I was only joking.
I'm sorry.
You don't have to apologise to me if I was rude to you.
I've been coming to see you for years.
Have you?
Years,
Yeah. And just thought tonight I'll get really drunk and shout out.
And I've just got over cancer.
Oh, you just got over cancer? Well, that's good news.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, for you, for me, it means you're going to be coming in and heckling. I'm delighted. Give this lady a round of applause. At last, some good news. Some good news. And as a comedian, it's a difficult one to deal with, isn't it? I've just got over cancer. Deal with that, you fucker. All right, I'm coming back at you. You're a lovely audience. Thank you very much. And please carry on being a lovely audience. Our guest tonight, this week. There was a lady like you in last week's audience. It was weird. So it's... Hello. Yeah, good. If I don't understand it, I don't have to respond. That's my rule. My guest this week is... I know why you're here. He's best known as Roger Splodger. Isn't he? In Grandpa... As if I need to tell you, in Grandpa in My Pocket. Yeah. And we're going to talk about that for 1 hour. Will you please welcome the amazing Sanjeev Bhaskar, ladies and gentlemen? So wonderful to have you, Sanjeev. Thank you very much. Here he is. Oh, my God. He's such a busy man. I've been trying to get him on this podcast for many years, and here he is. It's very exciting to have you.
Thank you very much. It is. Do you know? I was saying this to you before, but I'll say it again. Not to you. I'll say it to you because you've already heard it. But it's really strange to be on a podcast that you listen to, because otherwise, you know, he's a disembodied voice most of the time, and now he's embodied, and that's just a bit strange.
And
but
what a body it is that I've chosen to inhabit. Grandpa in My Pocket. Do you remember much about work? James Bolam, of course.
James Bolam, yeah, he was the grandpa.
How do they shrink him down for that? How do they make him so small? Or do they make you really big?
No, they made him small.
Okay.
By rewashing him.
Okay.
Because there's a label stuck to James Bolam's neck,
Yeah.
which says "Do not tumble dry." So they tumble dried him.
Okay.
Yeah,
That's good.
that learned him.
It's good. It's a fun show.
Yeah, it was fun. Yeah, it was fun for
Yeah.
the kids and stuff. And
What did Roger Splodger do? Just remind people who don't watch.
Everybody, tell everybody what he did. Roger Splodger was, because it's a kids show.
Yes.
Yeah, it was a kids show.
Well, you know, adults are allowed to watch it.
Yeah, of course
and I
they are.
do.
Yeah, no, absolutely right. So he was a pervert that had escaped from... Oh, sorry, the text rather than the subtext. He was, as the name suggests, he was a painter.
Okay.
And he wasn't a very good painter, but he thought he was brilliant.
Yeah.
And so he just kind of like, paint things that kids really love, like stepping in it and dropping it on his head and stuff like that.
Okay. And did you get to meet James Bolam? Were you working alongside him, or was he just in a different studio being small?
I wasn't. No, he was. He had his tiny trailer that he was in. No, I didn't do any scenes with him actually, but I did with, I think it was his missus.
Okay.
Who was in it, and so I did scenes with her. Who was lovely.
He's great, James Bolam. I tried to get him in my play, I Killed Rasputin, but he didn't want to do it. He preferred to be a small granddad in a pocket. That's fine. That is his choice.
Was it a tiny Rasputin?
It wasn't.
Because he was only doing tiny parts at that point.
It was a full-sized Felix Yusupov who was going to play, but yes, he didn't. Would you fancy a craft beer of some kind? These are from
what have you got here?
beer52.com. I've got a whole new batch this week.
Oh,
I've got Freak Scene, but they put the E in Freak back to front. That is how...
That's what's weirding me out.
Is that two? I'm going to have that one, because I'm a bit of a freak. There's Mrs. McCluskey.
Well, now, what is that? Is that Kavish?
Ceviche? Whatever you want. It's dry hopped wit beer with lime and coriander.
All right.
Come on, that's for you.
Yeah.
That's for... Come on.
Thank you, racist bastard.
You like it though, don't you? You like it.
Damn you, Herring. Damn you.
If I have a second beer, I might be drunk enough to try and roll out my attempt to do an Indian accent next. So
drink up, Richard. Drink up.
Why is it okay to do a Welsh one and a Scottish one and not?
Well, you can do a Welsh one, right?
Again, and that is basically...
You can do an Indian one then.
My Welsh one is very, very, very Indian.
Go on, go on.
I'll do Welsh. Oh, hello! I am from Wales!
Or Punjab, depending on the part. I filmed in Wales, and there were times where, and I had to do an accent for that. It was a character who just arrived from India, and there were times when I wasn't sure whether I was doing a Welsh accent or not. And then the Welsh actors who were there, I wasn't sure whether they were doing an Indian accent. It's absolutely true. The series I did was set in the 60s. It was a daytime drama thing called The Indian Doctor. And I was in the kind of the three-piece suit and stuff, and I went to a co-op that was sort of around the corner. And there was a lady behind me in the queue. And she said, hello, Dr. Khan, is it? And I turned around and I said, hello. Well, no, it isn't. I'm playing a doctor. She said, I'm sorry. She said, you looked exactly like him. And I said, that's amazing. I said, is he your doctor? She said, well, he wasn't until he died 20 years ago. That was real. That happened.
You know, it could be you could be the ghost of Dr. Khan, and maybe you are. We don't
in
know.
the co-op.
Yeah. A ghost still has to eat. So, what I didn't know about you, and what's that you only really started in entertainment and comedy when you were about 34, is that right?
Yeah, that's right.
So you worked in marketing for 10 years or so?
Yeah, I did a degree in business and marketing, and then worked in didn't have a proper job for 10 years until I started doing this. Yeah.
Right. Oh, did you work for IBM?
That was my first job.
Was it?
Yeah, IBM, yeah, in Hertfordshire.
Oh, was it? Oh, I did it. Me and Stu very early on did our friend Tony Brennan. Do you know Tony Brennan? He used to work for IBM. He, do you know?
Yeah. This is one of those kind of. Hey, you're Richard, right? You live in England. You know Dave. You must do, right? London, right? Dave.
He's a great guy. He booked me and Stu to do a winter corporate on a boat for IBM. So we did, like, one of our first gigs was on a boat on the river, and I wondered if you'd been there.
No.
It was very snowy. I got off with the girl, it was great.
Wasn't it? Yeah, we all saw that.
I got off with a girl who worked for IBM, it was good. I stole someone's coat who worked for IBM, and then I felt guilty about it the next day and brought it back. I didn't have much respect for the people who worked for IBM because I thought I was poor and I thought they were all rich.
Yeah, but you still brought the coat back.
Well, I did, but I don't know if I went in a coat or whether I didn't go in a coat and then it was snowing.
It was
I think it must have...
good plan not to go in a coat.
Yeah, and then you just take a
because
coat.
then you just take it and you go, what? It's mine.
Yeah.
Well, do you think I'm an idiot? I'd come out in the snow without a coat?
I must have left the coat that I came in there or didn't have a coat. And if I didn't have a coat, then I can steal a coat from someone who works for IBM, let them go home in the snow, in the cold, while I kiss their person who works with them.
It's not exactly Ocean's 11, is it? I mean, it's close, but...
Then I felt guilty, and I pretended I'd taken it by accident. No one believed me.
Redemption story.
No one believed me. Well, it's a shame. I wondered if you'd been at that gig, and then you thought, hey, if those guys are doing comedy, anyone can. Were you doing anything? Were you doing... I mean, it says that you sort of realised you wanted to do comedy, but were you doing other comedy in the...
No, well, I was... there's a now very successful composer, Nitin Sawhney, who does movies and stuff like that. So... we started doing stuff together at college, and we didn't really understand how gigging worked, so we would spend about a month putting together a set, and then do one show,
right.
And then that would be it.
Yeah.
Then we'd do another one the following year, and then it was about 6 or 7 years later that I said to him, you know, you're not doing anything at the moment, I'm not. Why don't we get together and just, you know, come up with stuff, and it'll be fun. And you know, he was brilliant and still is a brilliant musician, so we had that musical kind of element to it. We were called the Secret Asians, and gives you an indication of how good the comedy was. And we were doing one of these shows at the Oval House in London, in their studio theatres. It was 50-seater or something. And we got reviewed in Time Out, and we got this 5-star review.
From Bonnie Greer.
From Bonnie Greer.
Yeah.
Yeah, playwright Bonnie Greer. And some producers from the BBC turned up and said, we're thinking of doing a sketch show, and this the sort of material we're looking for, would you be interested?
I mean, that's insane. I mean, it's great, but
Yeah,
that's the
it
kind
is.
of thing you
It's
sort of
nuts.
dream of happening.
It is
when you
nuts.
start going, I'll put on a show, and then a BBC
Yeah, this is the
producer
plan.
and then we'll be on a successful BAFTA award.
What's your plan,
winning
son? To get really lucky. It'll never work.
But did
Dad.
I read somewhere that the producer tossed a coin as to whether they were going to come and see you? Is that true?
Yes, well, the name of the show was Poppadom Preach. And we were young, we were foolish. Yeah, they tossed a coin. They kind of said, this really sounds shit. And it was kind of, well, it's 90 minutes. It was less than that, actually. It was about an hour and 15 minutes or something. So it was either we flip a coin and go to the pub, or we go to the show and then we can still go to the pub. So the coin turned up the right way for me.
It's insane.
It is nuts.
I mean, I'm sure it would have happened anyway, but it's crazy that came together so
Yeah,
fast.
it is. Well, also, and I'm not sure if I've told anyone this before. This is one of those things where you're going to afterwards you'll say, "Do you really want that out?" So I was doing a TIE, theatre and education stuff, with a company called Tara Arts, which is based in London, and we were going around schools around the country doing sort of 40-minute Shakespeare plays for 8-year-olds. Mm-hmm. And I did one in North London. There was 2 of us, and we used masks and puppets and stuff like that. And there was a lady that came up to me after one of the shows. I used to improv in The Tempest, because they're 8 years old. You have to keep their sort of attention. And a lady came up to me afterwards, and she said, that was very funny. All the improv stuff you were doing was very funny. And I said, thanks. And she said, do you do comedy? And I said, yeah. Bless you. And she said, well, on your own, do you stand up, or are you part of a duo? And I said, no, part of a duo. And she said, what are you called? And we didn't have a name, and we weren't doing anything at that point. And I said, we're called Secret Asians. That's a pun. And she went, oh, yeah. And she said, I've not seen you on the circuit, because I kind of watch the circuit and stuff. And I said, no, I said, we're keeping a low profile. I said, my friend is doing some music. I really wanted to work with kids, and so that's why I'm here. And she went, oh, that's really interesting. And I went and rang Nitin and said, I bullshitted some woman today after this thing, not realising that she was a journalist. And she wrote this up in The Independent.
Right.
And so then there was this article with me kind of going, yeah, we're going to relaunch next year and all this kind of stuff. And then we had to do a gig. And so that's why we ended up doing the gig.
It's incredible.
A life of lies.
Everyone's just lucky, aren't they? Everyone's just luck. It's great. And goodness gracious me, how can you go to a restaurant at any point in your life without people saying the one thing to you that they must say to you all the time?
And what might that be?
About having an English.
Yes.
Does that ever come up still?
Do you know what? It's really interesting. On Twitter, people... One of the lines in the sketch was, what is the blandest thing on the menu?
Yeah.
Give me the blandest thing on the menu. And somebody sent me a tweet, not that long ago, actually, and they were on an airline, and I can't remember which one, but it's one of the options was European cuisine, in brackets, bland. They must have racked their brains going, how do we describe this? Do you just got no, it's a salt, not really salt, sweet. No, it's really bland. Bland. It's bland. And this was printed up on a menu card.
I mean, there was lots of great sketches in goodness gracious me, but that one did resonate with people.
Yeah, in a way that became our flagship
Yeah.
sketch, and it kind of, I suppose, set out our stall. If we had a stall, that's not too much of a stereotype. In the shop. It kind of, it was a reversal sketch and all that kind of stuff. But I mean, the 4 of us that wrote, so Mira, my missus, and I, Sharat Sadana and Richard Pinto were the 4 main writers. And we were just all into comedy. So we'd kind of watch stuff. We were watching stuff at the time. And so you get influenced by everything. But it was Richard and Sharat that came up with with that sketch mainly.
Yeah, and do people still shout at you? Because I'm going to do for the rest of the interview.
Are you?
No, I'm not.
Yeah.
But does it haunt you and follow you like sometimes those things can, or of people?
No, do you know
moved
what?
on?
It's 20 years since we we did it since it first came on TV, and we did 3 series. And it's really humbling, actually, that people still remember it with such fondness. And the strange thing is that a lot of people now found it on sort of YouTube clips and stuff like that. But I don't think it's aged that badly. No, some of it obviously has, but actually a lot of the sketches still kind of work. And so it is humbling that people still remember it fondly, and that's nice.
It's great. And the Kumars came after that. How long after Goodness Gracious Me was it? You did a couple of series of Goodness Gracious Me, and
on our recording day today, it was exactly to this day 17 years ago.
Right.
So it was 2001 this date.
Okay.
So
we're not going to tell you what date that is.
No, no. It's none of your fucking business. But I had the idea about 5 years earlier, and everybody turned it down.
Right.
And I remember somebody at one of the main channels who I met with who said, so what is this idea you've got? And I said, well, look, it's this family, and they interview real guests, and he's got his grandmother and his parents there, and it'll just be good because you've got an older person asking questions, and you've got an older woman asking questions, which a young guy can't ask and everything. And he went, yeah. He said, what would be really good? And I said, yeah. And he said, if the main interviewer was a woman, a young woman. And I said, oh, okay. Well, I was thinking of playing the interview, but let's hear it. And he said, and the reason that the guests turn up every week is because she's got great tits. Oh, can you believe this? And I kind of, and this was somebody involved in diversity at that channel. And I remember we were in a pub, and I just said, right, anyway, that's your idea, so good luck with that. I picked up my bit of A4 paper and I left.
Yeah.
So I had that for sort of 4 or 5 years.
Right, and it was based on the reality of your home life with your mother and father, is that true?
Well, it was based on a particular incident. Yeah, there was a girlfriend, Jeanette, who I took home to meet my parents. It was the first time I'd taken a girl home to meet my parents. I was kind of quite nervous about it. And we walked in through the door and I said, Jeanette, this is my mum, this is my dad. Mum, dad, this is Jeanette. And my dad said, pleased to meet you. How much does your father earn? And I said, Dad, you can't ask that. He said, it's only a question. She doesn't have to answer it. And I said, well, keep your voice down. It's no... And then my mum, voice of reason, stepped in and said, it's very... ignore him, Jeanette. It's very nice to meet you. Sanjeev has always been terrible at handling rejection. And it was kind of like... It's the first 30 seconds. And so when we started doing Goodness Gracious Me, I remember sitting in my room that I rented in South London at that time. And I thought, God, I wonder if I ever meet anyone famous. And I thought, gosh, I wonder what would happen if I introduced them to my parents. And I thought, no different. That's it.
Yeah.
And what was lovely was that my parents came to see a lot of the recordings. And I remember after the... who did we have on? We had Helena Bonham Carter was on. And, there'd be a green room thing afterwards. And I introduced Helena to my mum. I said, Helena, this is my real mum. This is my mum. And Helena said, oh, it's lovely to meet you. And my mum said, you're such a pretty face you have. And she said, oh, thank you. She said, why in the last film did they make you a monkey face? Which was the Planet of the Apes film had come out. And it was kind of like... Minnie Driver. Yeah. Minnie Driver had said that she was living in Los Angeles now and she doesn't live in London anymore. And my parents said, we live quite near the airport and we have a Z bed. And so if you ever need to start... Well, so they were doing that anyway. But...
Yeah. I mean, that's a pretty cool interactive experience where you do the show and then you come back and meet the real people.
They were not based on.
But
Sorry, you just reminded me. There was on the first show we did. It was Richard E. Grant and Michael Parkinson, and my dad before the show had said, "Can I invite someone?" And I said, "Who?" And he said, "Well, just." Can I invite someone? I said, well, it depends on who it is, Dad. I mean, who are you thinking of inviting? He said, I don't know. I haven't asked anyone yet. I don't know if they're available. And I said, but I'd like to know who you're bringing to the show. And he said, I don't know. And I said, look, you can bring anyone except Uncle Surinder, all right? Because Uncle Surinder always kind of just gets involved. And also, he has the largest turban in history. It was like the motherships in Independence Day. And he said, no, of course not. So, you go on to do the show. I walk on to say hello to the audience first. First thing I notice, row 3, fucking, mothership with Uncle Surinder underneath it, dangling underneath his turban. And so it became like someone who's got a boil or something. My eyes just drifted back to this huge turban. And afterwards, I was dreading him kind of like approaching either Richard E. Grant or Michael Parkinson and everything. And I said to my dad, I'd just keep him in the corner here, let him have his kind of like, glass of pop or whatever. And I was talking to Michael Parkinson, and as I'm talking to him, I see this shadow fall over Parky's face. And I just thought, oh, no. And then I heard a, Mr. Parkinson! And it was kind of like, I told you, Dad.
I think it works, though, because, obviously it worked for lots of reasons, very beautifully put together. But it's just like any family. It wasn't, even though it was an Asian family and there was those things in it, that's just like my mum and dad as well.
I think that's what, I think comedy, is most potent when there's universality in it. I think it's most interesting when it's, specific.
Yeah.
But within that specificity, you kind of hit all these things that are universal. And interestingly enough, the Kumars shown around the world, it was everywhere around the world, it was a British comedy.
Right.
Except here. In Britain, it was an Asian comedy. But everywhere else, I remember a review in, this, I don't know, San Jose Sentinel or some paper in America. That said, they said, we have no idea who the guests are. Eamon Holmes, we have no idea what is an Eamon Holmes. But they said, we get the fact that it's a family. We get that, the son is spoilt and the grandmother's a loose cannon and stuff like that. So, I am pleased with it. I am proud of it.
And it's interesting that's, again, I find celebrity a fascinating thing. But what's amazing is when, the veil falls away. And Eamon Holmes in America, it's just a bloke. That's just why you're talking about bloke. When I did Talking Cock was sort of done all over Europe and by different people in different languages, a stand-up show I did. And there was a big opening in Norway, I think. And I went to this opening in Norway and all these people walking in, all these glamorous clothes and a kind of old guy with espadrilles on, who everyone's going, oh, and you think, when you don't know who any of them are, it's just, what? It's just an old bloke. Why has he got an 18-year-old girlfriend? How's this working? It's insane. So you got, there's this sort of veneer of celebrity, which is interesting. And I guess you're choosing. You had obviously big stars on that show, but you're choosing interesting people to talk to that are going to be.
But you picked up on exactly what was behind my kind of idea of making it in the first place, or coming up with it, which was that, the moment they came through the front door and were confronted by a family, they could only be themselves. There was, that veneer of whatever celebrity was for them was absolutely stripped away. When you've got somebody who's older saying, do you want a cup of tea? Do you want a biscuit? Do you want a samosa? Have you eaten samosas? Do you like samosas? Is it too hot for you? And so there was lots of domestics that were in there. And I think it's very difficult when you've been involved in something, but I think it was quite disarming. I think, and
no, definitely.
But I think you certainly saw a different side to a celebrity.
Yeah, and you'd worked with Mira for a long time before you became romantically involved. Was it seeing her
3 years?
Yeah. Was it seeing her dressed up as a grandma that did it for you? Was that the?
Do you know what? I realised that there were no surprises for me coming up. In 50 or 60 years, I just turned around and go, there you are. She was the most reluctant person of the cast to do it.
I thought she was going to say to ever go out, to ever get romantically involved with me, but
ever put the teeth in when we had sex. She was
really.
Yeah, because she initially kind of said, do I want to just be known for playing an old lady and stuff? And I said, well, what makes you think the show's going to be a success anyway? But also, I knew that I couldn't think of anybody else who could improvise as well, and that was the thing that particularly Mira and myself needed to be able to improv. And we got to the stage where, we knew when the other person was setting up a gag. So I remember with Jane Seymour, when she was a guest, and she came on and I said, hello, Jane, you look very nice tonight. And she said, oh, thank you. And I said, your turn. And she said, oh, you look very nice as well. And I said, yeah, pinstripes, very slimming. And I threw that out there I knew that Mira would pick up on it. And what she came back with was, yeah, you know those pinstripes were a lot closer together before he put the jacket on. Which is kind of brilliant, you know. And so the difficulty for me was not laughing in character, you know, being offended by it or something. But yeah, we'd worked on Goodness Gracious Me, that's where we met.
And so it's interesting when something develops over a period of time, and obviously you're not together, and then suddenly you realise that there's something there.
Flight to Australia.
Yeah,
I mean, it's a long flight, and something's got to give. It is interesting because, in a way, we were colleagues first, and then we were friends for, I don't know, 8-10 years. I mean, you know, she was with someone else, I was with someone else, and. So yeah, it was a long gestation period in terms of us getting together. But also, when we got together, a lot of those boxes had been ticked in terms of, you know, do we get on? Are we interested in the same things? Yeah. Do we problem solve in the same way? But particularly, as you know, when you're working with somebody else in comedy, it can be really intense. And so problem solving within that is a great indicator.
I never married Stuart.
Didn't you?
I mean, we fucked a couple of times, but it's just to get the tension out.
Did one of you get more fucked than the other?
I think so. I think it was me. And you revived the Kumars, which I missed this, I am ashamed to say, but on Sky.
No, don't be ashamed. It was very short-lived. Not entirely successful, actually. I mean, we had some fantastic guests and there were some great moments, but Sky decided very, very close to us making the programme that they wanted it to be an hour.
Right.
And I wish now I'd said no. But at that point, I felt the pressure of kind of like, you know, we'd got people hired and it was, let's try it at an hour. But I think, you know, the reason that TV comedy works at a half hour is because you can suspend comic disbelief for that long. I think that at an hour you need something else. You need a narrative, or it becomes an entertainment show or variety show or something like that.
Sure. You had Brian Blessed on.
Brian! Do you know what? I got to ask him, I know he was on here, but I got to ask him my favourite question I asked anyone ever, which was, Brian, is it true that you once punched a polar bear in the face?
Yes, I do. Yes. He poked his nose in, you see. And I punched him in the face.
It was kind of, he's... I mean, he's not of this world, is he? Didn't he go up Everest without any oxygen?
Yeah, well, he said he's done a lot of things. He said a lot of stuff. I tuned out after a while, if I'm honest. I know you've been swatting up on the emergency questions. I know you bought the emergency questions.
I did buy it, yeah, because I wanted to be supportive.
Yeah, that's
not revision, like you pointed out.
I'm glad someone's bought it. I'll ask one from the back of my... So just in case you have been revising. Don't want you to cheat. I've got some new ones in the back of my book. Which sense could you do without? If you had to lose one sense, which sense would you lose?
God, I'd lose the sixth one I've got. I'd keep the other five.
That's good.
So yeah,
good answer.
Mind reading. I'd lose that one.
That's not fair. You knew that was coming.
I knew you were going to say that.
Thank you. Have you ever met Prince Andrew?
No, I haven't. I've seen him.
Yeah,
seen
him.
I've seen him. Yeah,
lurking around, doing the stuff he does.
Yeah, you know, doing
we don't need to go into
Prince Andy stuff.
When did you see him?
This is going to sound very name droppy. It was at Prince Charles's wedding.
Oh my gosh.
Yes. Me and Mira got invited to Prince Charles's wedding to Camilla. Not the first wedding, should have pointed out.
Been pretty impressive if you've been at that one.
Yeah, I know. If I had been, I would have been cleaning up afterwards. Times have changed. We've all moved on. Equal respect, equal opportunities. And so, I think the entire royal family were there. So they sort of walked. We were in the church at St. George's Chapel or whatever it is in Windsor. And, they all walked past. So I saw Prince Andrew.
What was he up to? Anything?
Couldn't see his hands.
No. Okay. So he's probably all right.
Yeah.
Probably all right. And let's see, what else have I got? Oh, this is a question that usually gets asked to women in the Daily Express that I've decided to only ask my male guests.
Oh, yeah.
What's your beauty secret?
Oh, gosh, that's a good one, isn't it? My beauty secret is just agree with your missus. Because the thing is that, because if your missus hits you, they know how to hit you without the bruises showing. But then you walk funny. And so, to avoid that whole thing of walking funny and people going, why are you walking funny? That's my beauty tip.
Okay, that's good.
Yeah. And hair dye.
So you become quite a serious... You've moved over into serious acting. I'm always suspicious of the comedians moving away from comedy.
It usually comes
But
from the
it's-
comedians who can't.
But
I'm
it's
joking.
I saw an interview when you were doing Spam a lot, which I want to talk to you about as well. But saying that you're not necessarily getting offered those leading man parts, and you're not getting offered serious parts very much. So obviously that's changed since that. That was about 10 years ago, 7, 8 years ago.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's no, I'm not a leading man anyway.
Well,
so,
we're
it's kind
both
of
of a similar stature.
we
and
are.
similar height.
We are.
And that
not dissimilar age.
No.
as
So
well.
that means that often sometimes
If I'm a leading man, that means
that I could be.
yeah. And if you're not a leading man, that means I probably am not. No, I'm not. I'm not a leading man in that kind of sense at all. I mean, I think that. Do you know what? I don't approach drama any differently to comedy. I think that was with Unforgotten, which is a series I have been doing and am doing. I got asked that question a lot actually, which was the comedy to drama thing, and I said I don't approach it any differently because you're playing a character, and then either funny shit happens to them or serious shit happens to them. The only difference, and then when I was talking to them, I said the difference is comedy is much more technical because comedy can come from obviously a punchline, or it can come from a word, or it can come from a pause. But if it comes from a pause, if the pause is too short, not funny. Too long, not funny. There's a sweet spot on the pause, and you don't have that with drama. And also comedy requires a very specific reaction, which drama doesn't. People had to wail to let you know that the drama had worked. It'd be a different kind of beast. But I then thought actually comedy is just harder. It is harder.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, a lot of actors say that. A lot say, "Oh, I wish I could do comedy. I wish I could be." A lot of you've worked with amazing actors, but you're talking to these actors that occasionally come across, like, "Oh, to do stand-up comedy, must be amazingly difficult." And you go, "But you've done Shakespeare and these harrowing roles," and they do feel that. But it's sort of weird the way comedy gets treated as certainly in award terms and things like that. It gets treated as a lesser thing.
It's the poor cousin, isn't it?
Yeah.
It always has been. No, I think that's ridiculous. I mean, it's kind of, with the Oscars particularly, they always pointed out there that there's very few comedy films that have kind of, and you think about the great comedy films. I mean, for me, it's, Some Like It Hot or Spinal Tap or, any of those things. The two of the three Python films, I think, are genius. Yeah. And they're not going to get anywhere close to it. I mean, but I think BAFTAs are slightly better than the Oscars. I remember Fish Called Wanda won a few. Michael Palin won, and I think John Cleese won something for that. Might have won Best Film. But it is rare. It's very rare. And I think, do you know what? It's that weird thing. Did you ever get this? Particularly when you were on TV.
All right.
What? And then radio. That thing of people coming up to you and going, "Yeah, my mate's funnier than you." You got my
They
cousin,
never did because
because they weren't.
They weren't. They knew. But I also think that's true. It is true that sometimes people's mates are funnier than you.
I would always say, they probably are.
Yeah.
I don't know them.
But there's lots of funny people in the world, and actually, it's not. It's not the ability to be funny in the pub that makes you a good comedian.
That's it.
It's all the work involved, except for you, where you just do a gig and someone comes along and says, "Here's a TV show."
Yeah.
But it is. You've got to
Positive discrimination gone mad.
But no, even from what you were talking about, the amount you're putting in. The thing you're saying is true. That comedy is the same effort as it's just acting, and it's about truth. So even though the Kumars, it's hyper real, it's not a real situation, but you've got to believe and act that situation exactly as if it are true within that. Just as if you're doing a serious police forensic drama, you've got to get into that character and be true.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
But I think comedy is harder because it is more technical.
Yeah.
And, people are adept at it, and that's great because they've just got a natural kind of affinity for it, and they can perform it and present it, and that's brilliant. But you've got fantastic comedy writers who are not particularly great on stage,
Yeah.
and, that's another skill. But I think it's a very... I agree with you. I think it's a really underrated skill as well. But in the same way that, actors as well... I mean, you wouldn't go to see a concert, for instance, and see someone play, I don't know, Rachmaninoff, or, back in the day, see Oscar Peterson playing jazz, come out and go, could do that. Shit, I could do that. With actors, people do. They come out of a cinema and they go, I'm better than him.
Yeah.
And with comedians, it's even more so.
It is, and I think it's easy to do that. It's with both because you think, it looks easy, and I can tell a joke, and I can pull a serious face. But when you start working with great actors, you really see the difference and the craft in it. And I think.
Well, but also because I think it's an intangible skill. I mean, until someone actually gets up on a stage and performs to an audience and tries to connect with an audience, it's just an abstract thing. It's. So I think it's whereas a musical skill, for instance, is very tangible.
Yes.
It's
And doing accents, that's just a tangible skill I have.
Yeah, you're gifted that way.
Yeah, I
actually,
am.
did you have to work on them, or did you?
No, I just think what's a Welsh person like, and what's an Indian person like. It's the same. And what's a Scottish person like? Just a bit colder, eating a bit less seaweed, and then it's there. Bang! It's gone. So. You crop up in. I was watching Notting Hill the other day, and I kind of have this love-hate thing with Richard Curtis, and I think he's an amazing writer. But some of the films are. Notting Hill's actually, you're maybe the only ethnic person in Notting Hill, aren't you? But you crop up in the restaurant with.
I think it was Angry Man at restaurant number 3,
right.
I think, which is my film debut.
Was the first one you were in? It was great.
Yeah, and it was. I mean, it was exciting to be on a
Yeah.
film set, but also I was doing a scene with Julia Roberts and Hugh Grant.
Yes.
And I remember we read through the scene beforehand. So, and Julia Roberts kind of said, I said, it's fine, I'll stand, because there weren't enough seats. And she said, no, I'll move here and you can sit here. And I sat down and her seat was still warm. And I thought, has she farted on it? And then I thought, can there be transference of DNA from this to, can I, if I suck it in, could it be DNA? Can you get DNA from a fart? You must be able to, right?
Yeah.
If you can get it from breath.
Yeah. They've caught a lot of criminals because they've farted in the scene.
That fart database.
It's just a bloke smelling.
Fart.
Yeah, I know that one.
The Farting Bureau of Investigation.
I tell you who doesn't do that job, Rick Edwards. Was she nice, Julia Roberts? Would you say if she wasn't nice?
I would say if she wasn't nice.
Yeah.
She was nice. Yeah, she was very, a little bit withdrawn. She wasn't kind of, she was very polite and she was very warm and stuff. Whereas Hugh Grant was very engaging and smiley, and I did Paddington 2 with him,
Yes.
and in which he was fantastic.
Well,
actually.
it's an awesome film. So that's what I mean. Paddington 2, I know, surely has won lots of awards, but that's such an awesome film. Because it's a comedy,
brilliant.
because it's a comedy and a kids show, kids film. It might be like, it's Paddington 2, but genuinely one of the most entertaining films I've ever seen.
Yeah, do you know, I would agree. And
Yeah.
it's kind of, and I thought the first one was brilliant as
Yes,
well.
it was, yeah.
But Hugh Grant in it was, it's like he was unshackled.
Yeah.
And he did some of the best improvising I have ever seen in my life.
Right.
A lot of which got cut because they moved scenes around. But he was just in the zone. And it was, because he started off in comedy.
Yeah,
He was in, he was in a comedy trio, I think. It was
That's right,
when
yeah,
it started.
nearly-
Jockeys of Norfolk.
That's it, Jockeys of Norfolk. Yeah, well done.
So he started in comedy, and he was brilliant in it. But yeah, he was really fun and he was engaging and stuff. And Julia was a little bit more Julia, like I know her.
Yeah.
I remember going on an Asian program at the time. And I thought it was stupid. I was in one scene, and Angry Man in Restaurant Number 3. I don't even have a bloody name. And I went on to plug it. And the first thing I said, look, I just want to quash the rumours about the affair that me and Julia Roberts are having. And she went, what affair? And I said, the rumours I'm trying to start now. I just want to quash the rumour I'm trying to start about having an affair. But no, she was Yeah, she's very warm and she's very
It's
striking.
a weird film.
Notting Hill.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, why is she interested in him and what's going on? She's horrible. She's horrible to him all the way through.
But she's Julia Roberts.
Oh, fuck her, but that's, you know.
Yeah, but you say that now. But
I say that having dated some actresses that I know Hugh Grant's character is going to get shafted in that film. But, you know,
well, he
there's
needed-
nothing really, you know, it's from, but this is what happens in a lot of Richard Curtis's stuff. There's this kind of romantic ideal of love sort of springing up from nowhere, and there's no, you know, this is not...
You want the sorry reality of your
Yeah.
own life reflected back at you. Like you haven't had enough.
I want Julia Roberts to realise Hugh Grant isn't all that good and then come over to Balham, where I was living at the time. The film should be called Balham. If she's just going to hook up with anyone who just bumps into her in a fucking bookshop. I might have some issues of my own there, but it's a good scene. It's a good scene, the restaurant scene. When you were
Yeah, it
sitting
was
in that
fun.
restaurant, did any of the other cast come up to you and say...
It was
Should we go for an English?
It was before it had
Ah,
before Goodness Gracious Me.
damn.
But, I think Goodness Gracious Me hadn't gone out
Really?
at that point.
Okay.
Yeah. Although I did learn something in that scene about continuity, which was that so we were at a Japanese restaurant, and so they put out this plate of sushi, and I thought, oh, fantastic, this is great. And I thought, that prawn looks fantastic. I'm going to save that prawn till the end. I'm going to have that manky bit of tuna first so I can get that out of the way. And of course, we shot the scene, and they say, cut, and they come back, they give you another plate, and they go, make sure you eat the tuna. 'Cause we've already got a shot of you. So for 4 hours, it was manky
looking
tuna.
at the prawn,
the
being
prawn was
replaced.
taunting me. It's-
You're the Chancellor of Sussex University.
I am, yeah.
How's that?
Do you want a degree?
Yeah, please.
Sorted. That's how it works. Yeah, that was bizarre. I followed Lord Attenborough, who was
Right.
Chancellor there for 10 years. Do you know what? They contacted me and said, you know, how would you feel about being... And I said, yeah, great. I said, you're not going to choose me, but God, what an honour to be asked. And then I said, look, you know, I got rejected by the University of Sussex when I applied. It was my first choice, and they rejected me.
Really?
And so I tell the students that every degree ceremony. I say, you never know how the future's going to turn out.
That's
Because I said, yeah, look, I didn't get in there, and I was really disappointed. And now, you know, up
I'd
yours,
have-
you bastards. I've come in, and I'm in charge.
I'd have gone in and fucked the place up.
Yeah.
Right, I'm the Chancellor. I'm like, let's just start throwing
Some
things
sort of-
around. You fuckers! I wasn't good enough for you before. Why do you like me now? I wouldn't have been Chancellor for very long, but it would have been a great day.
Can you imagine attempting to do a dirty protest across an entire campus? I mean, you know, one small room. You watch these documentaries, and they go, God, it was dirty protest in his cell. And you go, God, how long did that take? I mean, that can't be one shit, can it? I mean, that's got to be... Wait, I did
Saving
it.
it up.
Nobody checked in between and go, he's shitting on the walls.
I'm the Chancellor! There we go. Be good.
Student union bar.
And so your parents came over from India, but you did a show about going back to India because of the partition, right? It was
Yeah, I like to call it a documentary.
Yeah, sorry.
It makes it sound a little more highbrow than it. We opened with a song.
Musical.
To Ronnie's parody of Partition. Yeah, I did, it was a doc series that I did. It was India at 60 years of independence, so it was about 10, 11 years ago. And yeah, I kind of went round India and retraced my dad's steps in a
Right.
kind of, you know, who the fuck do you think you are kind of manner. So crossed into Pakistan because they were both born in what is now Pakistan. And then at Partition in 1947, they had to move as refugees. And my mum got out slightly earlier, my dad was slightly later, and he ended up in a refugee camp in Delhi. And it was that thing you left with whatever you could carry.
Right.
And in a way, this is the interesting thing about Partition in terms of the ripple effect of it, is that obviously it created, you know, 3 new countries in the region, India, Pakistan, and Bangladesh, 2 of which now have nuclear weapons, which is wasn't a great forward planning thing. But also a lot of those people who'd been displaced, like my parents. I mean, there was over 1 million people that died. It's the largest exodus in history, so it's over 15 million people had to move. with only a few weeks' notice as to where the border was going to come down. And it's not then surprising that a lot of those people who were displaced are the ones who then kind of emigrated to Britain, to Canada, and to America. And so my dad was part of this. So my dad came to Britain in 1956, so he was kind of fairly early, an early adopter. And my mum, 1960.
Right. And did they meet in the UK then, presumably?
No. So this is the weird thing is that they met in India, but my dad's older brother was married to my mum's older sister. So my sister and I used to say, of course, it was the cut price Indian musical, 2 brides for 2 brothers. So they kind of knew each other beforehand.
Yeah. And so I'm sort of interested in how things are going now compared to how things were going then.
With my parents, they're very happy. They've stuck it out. And,
Good. For immigrants to this country and people and the children of immigrants, because it felt like we were progressing forwards, hopefully. I mean, I'm presuming your parents maybe encountered some difficulties when they got here.
Yeah, I mean, my earliest memory is 2.5, and so I've got fairly vivid memories from sort of 3 onwards. And so I kind of remember what they went through. And so, them attempting to protect me from it, or, which done with the best intentions, didn't work because I clocked everything.
Yeah.
So, we had that thing of, so we lived above a laundrette in Hounslow in Middlesex, west of London. And I remember my parents having to paint over swastikas painted on their front door and Packies out and all this kind of stuff. And in a way, the weird thing about the 70s, if you lived through the 70s with the amount, particularly with racism and sexism and everything else, is that you kind of, it's not that you got used to it, but it kind of toughened you up in a slightly different way. So for me now, when I see kind of, the stuff that goes on social media particularly, I'm less affected by the name calling, because I've lived through that and I saw worse than that. And so, sure. In a way, it's not a defining badge for me, which I think it is for a lot of people who are younger. Mm-hmm. Do you see that you see it on Twitter sometimes? If people take huge offence at being called a name, and I kind of go, yeah, it's kind of like it's a bunch of letters that form a word. It's kind of like, I mean, I remember my mum saying to me when I was a kid, that an insult is only an insult once you've accepted it as one.
Yeah.
Up until that point, it isn't.
Yeah.
And so I grew up with that. But we had the National Front recruiting outside our school, and so the only person they ever recruited was a Sikh kid. Seriously, there was Juggy, and because they wouldn't get anyone. We had about a third. About a third of our school was Asian, and Juggy just misunderstood repatriation. And he said, what do they mean by repatriation? We said, well, they'll pay for you to go home. And he said, what? Hounslow. And we said, if that's where you live, that's where it'll be. And he said, what, the bus fare? Or we said, yep, the bus fare. So he went up to this guy and said, you want to send me home? And he went, yeah. And he said, okay, I'll sign up. He said, do I get it now, or do I get it, when do I get it? 30p. When do I get it? No. The guy just looked really confused. Yeah. It's the only person they recruited.
And do you think we're heading backwards or forwards within this? Do you think it's?
Well, Richard, that is a very big question.
It is a big question.
That you've asked.
I want an answer.
You want an answer? Yeah. I see. That's why you asked the question. That's how questions and answers work. I think broadly we've moved forward, but I think the same thing applies to sexism and ageism and everything else, which is that. So I've been doing I don't know, I'm supposed to kind of talk about this or not, so I will. So there's a doc series that the BBC are doing, and I'm doing one part of it. And I was looking at activists, and so the episode that I'm doing, I'm interviewing people about Martin Luther King. Who is it? Helen Keller, blind and deaf Helen Keller, Emmeline Pankhurst, and Gandhi. And the interesting thing about talking to people who knew, particularly Helen Keller and Martin Luther King, because they both died in 1968, was I kind of asked the question, what would they think about, the situation now? And with all of them, with Gandhi, with Emmeline Pankhurst as well, was that everybody kind of said they'd be slightly depressed. Because the thing is that they made such huge strides at that point.
Yeah.
that, you know, if you got votes for women in sort of 1930 was when they got votes for some women, you would have thought, yeah, within the next 20 years, yeah, women will have the vote. They'll be equal. And then you kind of go now, and things like equal pay and stuff like that is still a really, really big issue. So I think that we have generally moved forward because also, I mean, I'm stunned at how, you know, the shift to the right that the world has made in the last few years. I mean, I just don't get it. You know, you get someone like the President of the United States who's fact-checked on a daily basis, and you got people going, that's 30 lies today. There was another 30 lies today, another 10 lies today. And you go, and all these people are kind of going, no, that's the person we're backing. And you know, with that kind of attitude, that is the danger, because you kind of go, he in particular, but, you know, and people who love him and think he's great, think that behaviour is fine. So, you know, his attitude towards whether it's women, whether it's kind of ethnic minorities, well, everyone except him and his family, basically, is kind of justified in some way, and it enables a load of people. The one thing that I think is hopeful, and where I do think we've kind of moved on, is that there is a strong kind of counter voice to that. And in the 70s, you had kind of, you know, the anti-fascist kind of like brigades that would turn up to all the NF things. And I think now with online and the rest of it, I think it's just as powerful. And I think that, you know, we just, you know, Remembrance Day wasn't that long ago. And it was, you kind of go, all those people in those wars died for an ideal. And then you look at the ideals that people are chasing now and you go, has that just bypassed you, all that stuff?
Well, there's people wearing poppies and swastikas. You know, that's doing
Nazi. Is that hedging your bets?
I think it's a slight misunderstanding.
I'm not sure how this is going to turn out. So, so yeah, I think overall we have. But I think that, you know, that counter voice, I think, is really important, because I think, you know, it's the centre that gets squeezed out, and so you just get extremes that are shouting at each other over your head, and so. You know, that counter voice of kind of, which is reasonable and reasoning, I think is really important. I do see a lot of that.
Yeah. Yeah, well, yeah. Bloody Nazis.
Yeah.
Oh, those guys.
Honestly.
Let's give them another try and see how they do this time. That's what I say.
But the weird thing is, you kind of go, because I did marketing, right? So, you know, Nazism in the Hitler fashion, not now, the twats now, the one got no dress sense at all. But at that time, the whole styling of that thing was really clever.
Yeah.
You know, the Leni Riefenstahl kind of films, and you know, the uniforms. I mean, everything was kind of well thought out. It's a famous designer, wasn't it, who designed was it the SS uniforms? Or the
Hugo Boss, was it? I mean, I don't want to slander Hugo Boss.
Does anybody know?
He's a cunt, though. So. Yeah,
it was Hugo Boss.
It was Hugo Boss.
Yeah, yeah.
And Volkswagen.
Yeah.
Ian Volkswagen. He made the Volkswagen. Yeah, there was a lot going for him. You taught me round to Nazism. Before I met you, I was thinking the Nazis weren't all that great, but now the marketing.
You want to take the Nazis and you go, look, I don't give a shit about all that stuff. You go, what clothes do you think you'd be wearing? Nice. Oh, turn-ups are back.
So we'll move on from that. But thank you for sharing that. Let's talk about Monty Python. You've worked with and know all of the Monty Python guys, the living ones.
Yeah, the living ones. Yeah, I've met them all. I've worked with 3 of them. I've worked with all of them. Yeah, the ones that are living. Yeah. And I'm friends with 3 of them. Do you know what? It's really weird, Richard. It's really odd. I'm sorry to name drop again. I apologise in advance. Not really. Otherwise, I just wouldn't say it, would I? But something I genuinely find sort of really rooting and quite humbling is that when I think about my journey, right, and I don't know if you reflect on yours. You do when you have kids, don't you? You go, wow, look, we got a kid now, and this is amazing. And is that I think about the posters I had on my wall when I was 15. And I had the Python, so they were there. There was a Life of Brian poster I had. I had one of James Bond. I had Roger Moore, James Bond. Then I had Clint Eastwood and James Dean and Animal from the Muppets. I had a Laurel and Hardy and Elvis, Beatles.
You've worked with all of them since.
Do you know what? It's that weird thing. I met 3 of the Beatles.
Yeah.
And what's strange is I kind of go, I'm friends with some of these people now, and that's really strange. I mean, so with some of the Pythons, and Roger Moore I became friends with, which was bizarre and wonderful. And it's like they've stepped off my 15-year-old wall when nothing was going for me, and I thought I'm never going to do all this stuff that I'm interested in. I'll never end up doing that. And that's a really weird and warm moment, actually. Can I tell you something about Roger Moore?
Yes, please do.
One of the funniest things, he was really, really funny, a very supportive guy. And I said to Roger once, I said, Roger, have I ever told you that Live and Let Die was the first Bond film I ever went to see at the cinema? And he shook his head. And I said, I was 9 or 10 years old. And I said, that's the first Bond film. And I said, in those days, you had continuous programming. So when they showed the film, they'd wait 15 minutes and then they'd start running the film again. And I said, so the film finished. And I thought, yeah, I'll watch the beginning. Beginning was great. I'll watch another half an hour. That'd be great. I'll watch an hour. That's great. I said, Roger, I watched the whole thing twice. Sat there, watched the whole thing twice. And he paused for about 2 seconds and he said, you owe me £4.50. It was another time, and I'd written a book, and I'd got him to sign his book to me, and I said, is it okay if I give you my book, and I'll sign it to you? And he said, yeah, and I'd put to Hamara, Roger Moore, and Hamara in Hindi means hour, because when I was a kid, my mum used to go the equivalent of hour. Roger Moore's on the telly, and the whole family would get together and watch Roger Moore. And so I'd put Hamara, Roger Moore. And I said, maybe I should explain what Hamara means. And he said, may I hazard a guess? And I said, yeah, sure, Roger. He said, I'm guessing shithead. I said, Roger, I know you did Octopussy, I never realised you were fluent in Hindi. That's absolutely extraordinary.
But you did Spam a lot, and you were King Arthur in Spam a lot, which was...
yeah, that was bonkers as well, wasn't it?
Was great, but what an amazing thing to happen. End up being in the play of that film that presumably you watched as a kid. And loved. But then also to be King Arthur as well and be an Asian King Arthur, which is
that was the thing. That was the weird thing was I went to the audition, as my agent said, they want you to audition for King Arthur in Spamalot. And I said, well, they're not going to give it to me, but I've never been to a musical audition before. So let me go along and see what happens, because I have no idea. So I went along, and you had to sing a couple of songs and do some of the lines, so I did that. And then about a week or two later, my agent said, you've got the job. And I thought, oh my God. Then I looked at the script properly, and all those lines from Holy Grail that you used to do in the playground, all that... The night, it's only a flesh wound, and singing, always look on the bright side of life every night was extraordinary. And then the poster was me, my face on a Union Jack, behind a Union Jack. Oh, in front of a Union Jack, behind a Union Jack, you wouldn't see it. It's a shit poster, and I've never forgiven them for it. But I remember a lot of people kind of said to me at the time, they said, Asian King Arthur. And I said, well, it's actually King Art, like Art Malik. And I said, if you needed your horseshoeing at 3 o'clock in the morning, where else were you going to go? It was in the Asian shop that was open. But I did say, look, if people are thinking about my ethnicity when they leave, then I haven't done my job. Then they haven't bought into the character. So that was really interesting to kind of then just make the audience believe that it was a character that that wasn't as good as Graham Chapman, which is what everyone thinks when they go and see it.
Well, I mean, it's sort of it's a bizarre choice. I've not actually seen Spamalot, but it's an interesting choice from Eric Idle to make some more money, which he seems to like to do. But but people love that film, and it is a brilliant, brilliant film. And there's so many. We watched it again. I mean, I've watched it so many times. It's on Netflix, and we watched quite a lot of the Monty Python stuff on Netflix recently, and loads of it stands up. And those Brian and Grail really stand up.
Yeah, I think they really do. I mean, the interesting thing about Life of Brian is I don't think it would get made now.
No.
But actually what it says about religion and politics is absolutely, still apt and true and real.
Yeah.
And Holy Grail is just, it's that brilliant thing that actually I think Richard Curtis does really well, which is it's a series of sketches that are linked with a narrative. I mean,
Yes,
with
yeah.
Python, they gave up. I mean, they gave up on the narrative at the end of Holy Grail, but they're brilliant sketches. The witch scene is fantastically well written.
Yes, yeah.
You know. So yeah, those were the influences anyway.
Yeah.
But what were your influences? By the way?
Well, we're very similar. I mean, you know, all the things you've said are the things that I like as well. So I liked. I mean, I was Rick Mayall, maybe because I'm a touch younger than you, but I'm sure you were into the young ones. And it was Python, and not that it's not news, but then the young ones were really the big thing for me because it felt like my generation. Whereas Python was always like a thing that was sort of there, but you couldn't touch in a way because it was. Either it was Life of Brian was like a PG and I wasn't allowed to go and see it, although we did in the end, or the TV series wasn't repeated, you know. So if you weren't there, I think there was once they repeated some of it at one point, but it was still late at night and I wasn't able.
It was
to
late at night, yeah.
Wasn't really.
Was there ever a film that you sneaked into underage?
Yeah, loads of things. I went to see Kentucky Fried Movie,
I went to see that,
which was on a double bill with The Other Cinderella, which was a very. I've got the poster of Paul Putner. He was in our stuff. Found the poster of this double bill, the Kentucky Fried Movie, which was the Zucker brothers sort of precursor to Airplane. Slightly sexy stuff in it, but mainly really kind of
there was a big Enter the Dragon kind of.
There was a big Enter the Dragon parody.
Yeah.
There was some great stuff in it, and there was some slightly weirdly racist and weirdly, you know, booby girls with their boobs out being in showers, which I did not enjoy.
No,
because I was a feminist. And then
how is this essential to the plot?
And then The Other Cinderella was the Cinderella story told in a soft porn film, and I was 14, and me and my 14-year-old friends all went to see it, and. It was an X certificate, as it would be then. And we decided to go in the order we thought we'd get in. So we didn't send the least likely person first. We sent the most likely person in first, which just is typical, isn't it? So if we'd not all got in, we'd have just left the straggler.
And what was that based on?
Well, based on who we thought looked the oldest and the tallest. So Phil Fry, who was the oldest, actually looked the youngest. He was a real baby face. He still is. He's 52 years old and there's a baby face. And he was quite small, so he was last. And I think I might have been second last, and the taller ones went in first. And the woman let 4 of us in, and then she went, "Oh no, not you. You're too young." And we went, "No, he's 18." He said, "No, he's 18." We basically did the Monty Python in unbroken voices.
But did you kind of like dress up or make yourself look old?
I don't think we really did. I think we knew there was a good chance we'd get in. I seem to remember once going to like an X film and asking for a half. Which obviously
half of what?
It's a big mistake because you're supposed to say, yeah, but I'm only 14. Oh, yeah. So I'm not allowed in. But yeah, the Wells Odeon, it's not there anymore. They'd let children in to see porn films. It was fine. It was a different time. It was fine. But it was very exciting watching The Other Cinderella with my friends all sitting with erections in a row. Yeah.
Did you do that thing of sort of looking at, avoiding eye contact,
yes,
or giggling?
Yeah.
Or
I think there was a bit of giggling. All I remember, my main thing I remember is like a Somerset man at the back of probably a 15-year-old. It probably is the Monty Python sketch where everyone in the cinema was probably little boys dressed up as men. And there was a scene where a bloke just went, "Pert Nipples!" And I mean, I can still say that to my friends and we'll still laugh. "Pert Nipples! Pert Nipples!"
That was before the loop system was
I don't know.
introduced.
Maybe we could have stayed in, but it was a long old haul. I mean, Kentucky Fried Movie is a decent enough comedy.
Yeah.
The Other Cinderella, Other Cinderella, I wouldn't necessarily. I mean, there's better things online now if you want to masturbate to hardcore pornography, which I do not want to.
Although
do.
the whole thing about porn films and puns still persists, doesn't it?
Yeah,
I mean, that's the whole thing of.
Yeah.
The Cinderella and shaving Ryan's privates and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, it does a little bit. But it's kind of there was a charming old world
Of perversion.
It was a happier time, wasn't it? Where just pornography was just a woman touching another woman's breast, and we left it at that, and that was enough.
Somerset in the 70s.
Yeah. So yeah, we did, and I did get into. And I don't know if my parents just turned a blind eye. Or my parents were quite strict. They didn't want me to go and see Life of Brian. I had all the albums, the LPs of the Monty Python stuff, and I wasn't allowed to go. So I'd heard it all, and I'd got the book, and I'd learnt it all off by heart.
But did they not want you to go because of the religious overtones, or because
a little bit, but I think also because it was a PG or whatever it was. It was different all over the country. It was banned in some places, and some places it was an X, and some places it was a 14, and I think it was probably just under 14.
I think it was banned. Was it banned in Norway? And I think Sweden then.
And like some places in England as well, and Wales. I
Yeah,
think.
there were towns. Yeah.
Yeah.
There were towns. Yeah, exactly. There was one I think that only lifted the ban about 10 years
Yeah,
ago.
that's right. Yeah.
But I think I can't remember which way around it was, and maybe somebody can correct me. But I think Sweden kind of did show it, and they advertised it as the film so funny that it was banned by Norway.
Oh yeah, that's right.
They were just next door.
Which way it was,
And Ireland, I think, banned.
Yeah, well,
banned
I
it, which
thought
is
so.
understandable, isn't it?
Yeah.
And the Vatican.
Yeah.
The Vatican probably didn't ban it. It was probably on a double bill with.
It's an amazing film.
Yeah, it's brilliant. It is brilliant. Has everyone seen it? Has everyone seen it?
Of course they have. Bloody comedy nerds. Not like you and me. Sam.
No, I know
We're above that. Talking about Monty Python's Life, Brian, for 40 minutes at the end of this podcast. Anyway, hey, look, we're going to have to wrap up. There's lots of things I want to talk to you about. Thomas and Friends coming up. Is that out yet? You're playing an engine in Thomas?
I have no idea. I've done the voice. I've got no idea. But it's really interesting. The Thomas world it's out there.
Yeah.
I mean, it's kind of because people again tweeted me and said, well done on voicing Shankar, the Indian engine.
Find that accent quite offensive.
Well,
Yeah, what you just did there was very offensive.
from Pontypridd.
That's fine. Now it's fine.
Yeah, thank you. Should have clarified. I mean, these are older Thomas the Tank Engine enthusiasts from all over the world. I mean, I had no idea this world existed, but it does.
Yeah, and they've broadened. There's trains from all over the world now. Is Thomas? Do you know what's happening? Is Thomas travelling around the world and meeting trains from other lands and finding out they're okay?
Yes, I think that Thomas.
Except in Germany, where it's a bit weird.
Yeah, Thomas and his friends go to different countries and introduce civilization, and basically take those countries over and show them how how to play cricket.
They've left. They live in Sodor, don't they? Thomas Tank Engine's from Sodor.
Well, Sodor.
Sodor. It's a funny little reverend man, didn't it? Was who did that? Anyway, yes, we'll. There was something I was going to. Oh yeah, I wanted to ask if this is true about your father. Did your mother find your father when you were in your cot whispering into your ear, "I want to be a businessman"?
Yes, he did. The two. My dad adopted subliminal marketing techniques way before they were popular. Yeah, the two things that I do remember from that. Well, I don't remember that one because I was in the cot. But, although I could have been in a cot at 35. Yeah. But as I was once, that was Cuba. Anyway, it was a memorable holiday. But it was my dad. My mum found my dad saying, "Yeah, I want to be a businessman." The other thing was when I was about 5 or 6 or something, I remember an uncle who said, "So, what do you want to be when you grow up?" And I said, "Actor." And my dad said, "It's pronounced doctor," and which my dad then denied. And luckily, my mum said, "No, he did say that."
Are they proud of you, your parents?
No, because I'm not a doctor. I'm an honorary doctor.
You are, and you're a businessman. Really, I mean, come on.
Well,
your business is you.
Yeah. Everyone's business is them. I mean, no, I'm a chancellor.
Yeah, you're chancellor.
But not in the German sense. But yet. She's giving it up, so could be in there.
Could be.
Ich spreche Deutsch.
Good.
Ein bisschen. And that's enough to make me run. But do you know what? I feel really, really fortunate that given how late it was when I started and stuff, I'm really, really grateful that my parents were still around. To have seen it. Because the thing is that I think for them, particularly having moved, emigrated here, and it was difficult for them. The loneliness alone was difficult when they first moved. And aside from the fact that you couldn't get black pepper when I was a kid. Right. You couldn't get it. It was white pepper was everywhere. It's not a racist thing. It's just kind of like, it's a taste thing. But, it's still in CAFs. There are CAFs. That's the only place I see white pepper now is in CAFs. I don't see them anywhere else. So I think they found it very, very difficult. But, one of the things I think as a parent, as a fellow parent, is that ultimately you want to know that you did a good job, unless you're Fritzl, and then the rules obviously don't apply. But you want to know that you've kind of done a good job. You brought your kids up well, and they'll be healthy, safe, whatever it is. And I think that was the thing. I think at 30, I think they were thinking, what have we done? We've kind of he's not doing anything, and he's going nowhere. And so yeah, that's one of the things I think I'm most grateful for. Is that and they're still about, and
that's great,
which is lovely. Yeah.
That's fantastic. Well, look, it's been just such an honour to talk to you. You're a wonderful man, and you're a fantastic actor.
Thank you very
do
much.
Comedy, and I'm sure you will, and do your serious acting as well. And ladies and gentlemen, Sanjeev Bhaskar! Give it up! We'll be back next week for the last one. It's all sold out. And yes, thank you very much. I'll be in the back in about 5 minutes. Thank you. Bye.
Well, my oh my, what a wonderful show that was. Thank you to Sanjeev and all the audience for laughing so much. We had the best of times. Thank you to our sponsor, beer52.com, beer52.com/rehearsal to claim your 8 free craft beers. You can also get all my DVDs, including Go For a Gun 50, at gofasterstripe.com, as well as my book, Emergency Questions, which is available at all good bookstores, Amazon, Waterstones, gofasterstripe.com. And do check out tickets for future shows. I'll be doing ones in London, and there's plans for doing quite a few shows on the road in 2019. Go to richchain.com/gigs, and then you will find out about that. I am going to go and lie down now. Goodbye.
How'd you like them sky potatoes?